Good morning, church. It's good to be with you today. Today we are looking at Isaiah chapter 7. Just want to highlight that this is where we get the very famous verse we know about Jesus. He says, "See, the virgin will conceive, have a son, and name him Emmanuel." We all know that. We love that around Christmas time, and we quote it all the time. But what's interesting, and we've talked about this before in prophecy, is that there is no way at all that Isaiah or Ahaz would have understood this as a forward-looking prophecy. This is why we talk about prophecy having necessarily a in-the-moment or practical application that the person receiving the prophecy could see fulfilled, as well as a fuller and complete application in Christ. Christ is the end of prophecy. We remember that. And so Isaiah was prophesying something that Ahaz could see. And as we read it, you get the sense of the timeline of what's happening and what's going on. So just remember that as we're reading our Old Testament, as we're thinking about prophecy, what was the in-the-moment application, and where do we see that fulfillment in Christ? What is that forward-looking fulfillment as well? And then we go backwards to 2 Chronicles, and chapter 26 highlights a danger for us Christians. Uzziah, King Uzziah, or Azariah, as he'll be called in 2 Kings when we talk about him, he followed God at the beginning of his life, just like Joash. But when he got established, then he chose to do his own thing. But when he became strong, he acted arrogantly, and it led to his own destruction. He acted unfaithfully against the Lord his God by going into the Lord's sanctuary to burn incense on the incense altar. So he violated the distinction. Kings weren't supposed to do that. That was the priest's job. That's what we see the next encounter. Some bold priests who go to tell him, no, that's not right. How often do we as Christians want to seek God when things are rough? We pursue God when it's bad. And when we're good, we say, well, I kind of got this. I think I'm good now, God. And we can act arrogantly. We can want to do our own thing. But this passage reminds us that that's not right. We're going to hear about Hezekiah in a few days. He does something very similar, and it's bad. And this pattern repeats over and over again. So I encourage you, if you're in a stable spot right now, don't forget God. Pursue him even more as a matter of habit, because he's given you rest. That's a great blessing that God gives. Rest on all sides. I love that phrase in the Old Testament. So if he's given you a season of rest, pursue him even more in thankfulness. Don't let up. Don't get arrogant. Be careful if you think you stand, Paul says, because that's a moment of potentially precariousness. You just might be sinking. So let's always be pursuing God, never relying on our own strength. And we go to Philemon, and we hear about Philemon was the owner of the slave Onesimus. And we hear a lot about Onesimus. You've been hearing his name throughout our readings. He was a great help to Paul, but Paul wanted all things to be right and in good order. Onesimus was a runaway slave, and even though Paul wanted to keep him, he knew it was right to allow that right reconciliation process to take place. And that's just a brief reminder that even the right thing can be the hard thing sometimes, even if it costs us and puts us in a potential for things not to go our way. Always pursue what's right and never pursuing our own gain at the cost of doing God's will. I love you, church, and I look forward to talking to you soon again.